know, the Methodist Church has a wonderful, well-stated mission to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. We explain our beliefs or recite our beliefs as part of the Apostles' Creed. Those are the things that we embrace as beliefs in our church. But here at First United Methodist Church, we have 5 very distinct visions or pathways in which to practice those beliefs: worship, mission and outreach, Christian education, stewardship, and evangelism. Those are building blocks for the practice of our faith and the unifying of the Christian body. This past year, we focused on worship. We involved all of our parishioners to the extent possible as readers or greeters or ushers or communion stewards. We asked people to not only participate in worship in a passive way, but to be active in their worship.
Worship for Christians is our foundation, individually and as a church. Worship is also our grateful response to God for the indescribable gift that He has given us.
I'm very excited that we started with the worship initiative this year, because I believe that everything that we do as a church, all the other ministries of our church, grow from our worship of God. And I think that's something that this congregation has always done well. The teaching bulletins that we've put together, I think have been very helpful. There's even parts of it that I've learned about why we do specifically what we do. And I think it's very important to keep that in mind as we worship.
Diane and I started reading daily because the elections were in the bulletin, and we started it at Lent. And once we started it, we started reading and discussing what we were reading and the different verses, and I found myself almost subconsciously going back and reading chapters before the chapters that were in the lectionary, and going further into the topics, and before you know it, I was reading the entire chapters and even read the book.
This all kind of happened as a new focus on Lent for us, but it has been something that's added so much to our worship experience. And it's hard to start the day without having sat down and done this reading. So to us, it's been a great blessing.
I can't think of anything in my adult life that has probably been more impactful from the standpoint of reading and learning about the Bible.
I've enjoyed finding information on one of our hymns every Sunday during this worship year, so that can be put in the bulletin. And I've personally learned a lot about the motivations that have been behind the writing of the hymns and the hymn texts that we've sung this year.
I was so pleased to find out that lay readers have been added to the worship services here at First United Methodist Church. Reading the lectionary scriptures is such a vital part of our worship as we gather together each week. This practice provides another way for an individual to participate in the worship experience and share their gifts to the glory of God.
I think it's fantastic that our congregation uses the hymnals to such a point that they are literally falling apart. And I think it's just as fantastic that there are people in our church who came together and wanted us to be able to replace those hymnals. And they did a lot of work, a lot of fundraising, and a lot of work afterwards to get those hymnals into the pew. This year, during our worship emphasis, we added the Easter Vigil on Saturday night, the night before Easter, and am also very appreciative for the healing service that we have, which we do sometimes, but we've intentionally done that this year.
We went on the mission trip to the Bahamas, and one of the things we brought back was the Palm Sunday Parade. And we initiated it this year with our congregation, and it was a great success. We hope that in the future it becomes a tradition here at the First United Methodist Church, and that we can involve other church groups for fellowship in a growing Palm Sunday Parade.
This year, I was fortunate enough to work with Mark Miller at Blue Lake and work with him in the music that we sang. Mark Miller has written so many pieces that the youth choir has sang throughout my time in the youth choir, and his music has been so impactful on my life. It was such a great experience to get to work with him this year at Blue Lake.
Mark is an incredible musician and an incredible worship leader. I have known Mark since about the year 2000 and have just been completely enamored with his ability to be able to bring other people into the presence of God through his worship. And I'm just so excited that we got to experience that here.
Our experience in the Introduction to Worship class reaffirmed our love for Methodist worship and opened doors for a more meaningful understanding of what we do and why we do when we worship at First Church.
Well, I enjoy it so much because as a learning Christian in training, it is really wonderful to see why we worship.
What I appreciated most about the 6-week Introduction to Worship class was the opportunity to look at things both from broad concepts and fine details. So looking at worship as a whole, of what it means to us, not just when we gather together on Sunday mornings, but as something that impacts every area of our life. And then going into the details of the liturgical calendar and creating spaces of worship and church architecture. And I think the most fascinating part to me was learning about the sacraments of Holy Communion and baptism from a United Methodist perspective and what it means both for us as individuals and as a community.